Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second, but we're going to treat it as the first live stream for my channel. The topic of discussion, obviously, is a question and answer panel about my recent through hike of the River to River Trail in southern Illinois. So, to do a quick recap here, the River to River Trail in southern Illinois runs between two rivers, the Mississippi River and the Ohio River, along the Shawnee National Forest. Uh, just recently, probably about mid-October to late October, I went out and hiked eastbound from Elizabethtown to Grand Tower to complete my solo adventure of this trail, which I had been trying to accomplish for quite a few number of years now. Um, it's 160 miles. The mileage has gone up some as they've done some reroutes and additions. Um, I told myself going into this, if I did 16 miles a day, I could finish in 10 days. Um, give or take, missing a section or two, I completed the trail in 8 days. I won't say completed the trail. I finished 137 miles of the trail in 8 days. I've seen people accomplish this trail in 8 days. Recently, there's been a through hiker that has announced that they've completed the trail in 7 days. But the fastest I've seen somebody complete this trail, not doubling back to the fastest known time, but your casual stroll through the woods, 8 days. So anyways, getting back on topic here. So why did I choose the River to River Trail? Well, when I first got into backpacking and through hiking, I did my own kind of research and looking into things. And obviously, like most people who get into backpacking, they learn about the Pacific Crest Trail or the Appalachian Trail or many of these other popular, well-known long-distance trails. So I dove deep. I researched gear. I researched these trails and how people hike them. I watched countless videos on YouTube. But that goes without saying that at the specific time in my life when I was doing this research, I got married. I purchased a house. So really jumping into taking off for months at a time to travel 1,000-mile hiking trail, it wouldn't have worked. So I didn't want to give up that quickly on the whole thought and idea of through hiking a point-to-point trail. So I started researching smaller trails that were a bit closer to me, and I discovered there's a 500-mile Ice Age trail, still kind of long, but I discovered a lot of smaller trails that can be completed, in a matter of days to weeks. And I had stumbled upon the River to River Trail. I don't know how, magically somehow. It's a hidden gem. And just became obsessed with completing the River to River Trail. I've done just about as much research on it and looking into YouTube videos and everything from the trail guide, the society website, all the volunteer organizations that go into maintaining and upkeeping it. I've done just about as much research of the trail as I could. And that's what makes this trail unique compared to others, is not only its proximity to where I live in the Chicagoland area, so really getting away for a multi-day backpacking trip, the River to River was just perfect. Obviously outside of hiking the trails in Michigan or Wisconsin, the River to River Trail offers that through hike experience of hiking from point A to point B without having to take off for months at a time. You get that experience of through hiking a trail and getting in the backcountry for days at a time without the commitment. So I hope to cover a lot of information in this live stream. I'm going to be discussing everything from pre-hike planning to jumping into my gear, food, meals, resupply, my daily hiking life, trail experiences, challenges, campsites, interactions with people, lessons that I've learned. And obviously, as we go through into this, I'll take questions as they come. I know I got a chat here that I'm trying to keep track of. See if I can. Yeah. We'll see if I can keep track of this here, because I'm also doing a giveaway on this channel, and I'm doing it kind of old school because I'm an old school kind of guy. So as I see your name in the chat here, I'm gonna jot it down, right? I'm gonna put it in the hat, and then towards the end of this, I'm gonna draw your name in the hat. And the prize that I've decided to go with for this live stream is a $50 gift card to any online backpacking retailer. So that can be, you know, garage grown gear, REI. If it's food you're looking at, I know they've got a bunch of online food retailers, freeze dried meals, cold soaked meals, stuff like that. If you can find me a legitimate online backpacking retailer, I will get you a $50 gift card to that retailer if your name is drawn. So I'm going to do my best, like I said, to stay on the chat here, and because it's really, there we go. Hold on. See if I can get this chat to turn sideways. We don't want to do that. It's all my messy living room there. I got kids. Don't judge. Yeah, there we go. I think I got the chat figured out here. Can you have a $100 Amazon gift card? I'm not doing Amazon gift cards. It's going to be specifically a backpacking retailer. So, like I said, REI, Sierra, garage grown gear, $50. So jumping into this, as I said, if you got questions, throw them at me. I'll do my best to maintain or monitor the chat here. As I'm going through this, I'm also going to throw names into the hat. So bear with me, okay? So as we jump back into the conversation here, we'll talk about pre-hike planning for the River to River Trail. Like I said, this is a trail that the solo experience is something that I've longed for and have prepped for and have dreamt of for years and have tried to complete. Without going too much into it, I had a failed solo attempt in 2022. This year was my reattempt at that solo, and I don't know if I'd call it successful, as I kind of missed out on about 20 miles, but that was my choice. But I'm content and happy with the trail experience that I've got this year with my solo endeavor. So we're going to go into pre-hike planning for this year's hike specifically, not going into anything as far as my past hikes. I have another successful thru-hike going westbound with my good friend Joe, but we won't be talking about that. We're specifically talking this year. So let's see here. Sorry, people, I'm just trying to get the names in the hat as we go here. It's good to see everybody here. I trust everybody's having a good holiday season. So anyways, why did I pick eastbound for my solo hike instead of westbound? I know there's a lot of debate as far as which direction is easiest or more pleasant. I'd already had a westbound thru hike under my belt, and my main objective starting this journey was completing a solo thru hike going the traditional route, which was east to west. So as far as picking my route, it's as simple as that. I wanted the traditional route. I wanted to go the usual experience that everybody had going into this. As far as mapping tools I used, I know there's a lot of stuff out there like Onyx Backcountry, and Far Out and GPX. I used the most which made the most sense. I used the one that's referenced the most in the trail guide, and I will try to reference this trail guide and the River to River Trail website as much as I can, because that was a crucial asset into planning this hike. There is a website that covers this trail. They do have a trail guide. It's a bit outdated, but it's still pretty current on the information that it shows. They do update the maps frequently, and that's river-to-river-trail.net. river-to-river-trail.net. As I said, they had a trail guide there, and they mentioned in the trail guide, as far as navigation, to use the Avenza map app. And the reason for this is because the maps can be downloaded, they can work offline. You don't necessarily need cell reception to utilize the GPS on the app itself. So it made the most sense to use Avenza because it was recommended by the Trail Society, and it's just what everybody used. So it made sense to do that. Going into this, I guess you could say a third or fourth time since having started hiking this trail, there were key sections of the trail that I feel like I had to mentally prepare for. And obviously one of those is the lengthy 10-mile road walk at the end, the levee walk, the exposed walk, which I'll be honest, if you're starting this trail doing a westbound through hike, it's easiest getting that out of the way first. And obviously if you're doing an eastbound through hike, having that at the end is kind of a kick in the butt. But that section was one I feel like I had to mentally prepare for. Gum Springs is not a fun one. And recently, with the storm damage that they've had and the recent overgrowth, there's small little tidbits along the trail that particularly were almost mentally crushing. Small sections of Crab Orchard, Panther Den. There's an area over by Dutchman that's just a nightmare. But yeah, as far as mentally preparing for them, I just kind of had to get through my head that these were sections I was not going to enjoy. You jump into this kind of experience to enjoy a backpacking experience. You don't expect going into it that you're going to run into an area where you might feel lost or off trail, or deal with a multitude of downed trees and overgrowth. But I feel like planning for a through hike going into it is just best to prepare yourself that not every day is going to be rainbows and sunshine, and that's okay. Physical prep. Let's talk about physical prep. Like I said, I'm trying to monitor this as much as I can. Okay. How well is the trail marked? Again, we're talking specifically this year. I'm not going to get into going westbound. This year, I felt like the trail was missing some blazes. I felt like either the blazes were taken down in storm damage, or I just didn't notice a whole lot this year. And I know it's tough, to find volunteers to go out there to put up blazes, but definitely I found myself having to utilize Avenza a lot more than looking for the blazes. But obviously, if you're hiking, the first thing you're going to look for is a blaze. If you're trying to find your position on a map, you're going to look for a blaze. There were sections of the trail I didn't feel like I had problem with blazes because they were a little more frequent than they needed to be. Like, I remember there was one area where I saw a blaze, and then like 20 feet later there was another blaze. It's kind of redundant, but yeah, I would just say utilize Avenza as best as you can. I hope that answers your question, Merv. Is it super easy to get off trail? If you're not paying attention, yes. I made it a cardinal rule for myself that if I came upon a creek crossing or a trail intersection, I wasn't going to ask twice. I was going to look at the map to make sure I was still on trail, because past hike experiences, I would come upon an intersection or a creek crossing and I would just go with my gut instinct, and 9 times out of 10 it was the wrong instinct. So definitely Avenza is a very reliable app as far as direction and navigation, and I can't stress it enough. You come across an intersection or a trail crossing or any kind of crossing, just check the map. It doesn't take that long and you'll be on the right track in no time. So thank you for that question, Merv. Jumping back into it here. Where were we? Physical prep. I did do some physical prep for this trail, which included, some basic cardio and calisthenics. So like running, I have a video on my channel that kind of dives into physical training for this trail and what I feel is best suited to prepare you for the trail. And a lot of it's just kind of leg exercises, because you're going up a lot of hills, you're doing a lot of walking. So those exercises I feel like are key to getting you in physical peak condition to do this trail comfortably. How prepared did I actually feel going into this? I felt physically prepared as from the time I started prepping for this hike, which was a year before, to the day I started. I did lose a substantial amount of weight, which kind of worked against me in its own way, as like certain gear that I had bought at a certain size, and now that I had lost all this weight, yeah, we'll get into that though in a minute. But I felt physically prepared for this hike, having done the physical prep that I did do. But obviously, how about your pack weight? Going into this, I think my base weight, I have my my lighter pack link attached to one of my videos. I think my base weight was somewhere around 14 or 15, and I think with food and water I was somewhere around 24. Let's see here. Sorry, folks. So going into budget now, because I don't want to go on a tangent about physical prep. We all know what that consists of. For budgeting for this trail, I wanted to save approximately $600, which I did. I only ended up spending a rough estimate between $450 and $500. And so where did that money go? Gas, fuel, as I'm coming from Chicagoland to the Shawnee National Forest. It's like 300 some odd miles. So that covered gas getting down there and back up. That covered food and resupply. That covered the fee that I felt was comfortable for a shuttle escort. That covered gear expenditures, etc., etc. You can do this hike without having to spend a fortune. It obviously all depends on your relevancy to the trail, because you need fuel to get down there. You need fuel to get to the trail. And as far as like, if you're carrying all your food out, if you're planning on, some of the pleasantries on the trail, like food or lodging, you want to incorporate that in your budget. If you are going to get a shuttle escort, there's, outside of locals, there is one man who does shuttle escorts specifically as his business down there. He does charge a fee. I'm not going to go into what that fee is because I'm not sure, but he does charge a fee. So yeah, anyways, let's talk about gear. Let's dive into gear real quick. Just want to make sure I'm keeping up with the conversation here and people in the chat. All right. Let's talk about the big three: backpack, shelter, sleep. So for my backpack, I had a Mountain Smith Zerk 40. It's a 40-liter rucksack. When I got the pack as a gift from my wife long before I started this hike. I love that pack. I guess the one thing I like most about that pack is its accessible storage while you're wearing it. There's tons of pockets in the front, stuff pockets that you can access without having to take the pack off, which was one thing I liked about the pack. It was a larger size pack, as I was a larger size person before starting the trail, and since losing the weight, I probably could have sized down to like a medium on the pack. I think I got a large, and if I'd done that, I probably wouldn't have dealt with a lot of the discomfort that I had while I was hiking. I got a lot of pack strap sores on my shoulders and stuff, and I mean, sometimes there's just no way around that. You just got to kind of monitor it and treat it. But that was the only downside to that pack, I think, was that it was just on a tad too large size while I was hiking this trail. But I love that pack. So, Jamie, my wife, if you're watching this, I love that pack. Please don't think twice. I love that pack. Let's dive into my shelter setup. I had a Featherstone backbone one-person trekking pole tent. It is a single wall tent, meaning that the mesh portion and the wren fly portion of the tent are sewn together. So really, all you got to do is set it up with the trekking pole. You're done. Tie it down with the stakes, and that's it. It was super easy to set up. I think it weighed 31 ounces. It's made of sil nylon. I think the only downside to that tent was that condensation was kind of a pain. There was two times. One time I had set up in grass, which I hugely regret, and condensation was a nightmare in the morning. And then another time, I want to say it was, maybe I didn't have both doors open or something in the vestibule, and I had like a tiny bit of condensation. I bring a towel with me, a backcountry towel, so for the main purpose of wiping the tent down in the morning, so it's really not a big deal. But if you are looking into a tent, it's the Featherstone backbone one-person trekking pole tent, and that is the only thing that's kind of like iffy about it. Is it's not a lot of condensation, but there is condensation with the tent. For sleep, going into like my sleeping bag and pad setup, I had a Teton Sports Alto S 0 degree mummy bag. It's a synthetic. It's the synthetic version, not the down. So it's a plant-based fill. That bag is super warm. I didn't want to take the challenge of underpacking like I had done years before on this trail, so I went with what I knew, and that was that my Teton Sports synthetic bag was warm, and I love that sleeping bag. For my sleeping pad, I had a Gear Doctors Apollo Air inflatable pad. For people that aren't familiar with that specific sleeping pad, I did my research in a sleeping pad where I could get something comparable to a Thermarest without spending a fortune, and that's the Gear Doctors Apollo Air. The thing has an R value of 5.2. It's insulated, and it's just a very durable bag. It's a very durable pad. It comes with a pump bag you fill up and kind of roll out to inflate it. I think it's like $99 on Amazon. You can't beat that. I still use it to this day. It's a very durable sleeping pad. Clothing. Talking about clothing that I wear. I'll just have to get you a new pack. How long did the hike take? I didn't complete all 160 miles. I did 137 miles of the trail. I finished it in 8 days. At the beginning of the video, I talked about the time it takes to do this trail. Most people give themselves 10 days to do it comfortably. I've seen people hike it completely in 8 days. Just recently, there was a guy on the River to River Trail Thru-Hikers page that announced he completed it in 7 days. So yeah. Jumping back into clothing, what did I wear daily? Synthetic layers. So I wore a merino wool base layer, which was the top and bottoms. I had some nylon pants from Wrangler, the Injinji toe socks. I didn't bring a fleece, but I brought a puff jacket, and I think I brought another layer long sleeve. It's just like a synthetic activewear top and bottom, and I just layered up. And as it got warmer, I took layers off. As it got colder, I put layers on. What worked and what didn't? I didn't really have a problem with the clothes that I brought. It worked out. I only brought 2 pairs of socks. I probably should have brought 3, but that's okay. I brought 2. I told myself going into the hike that I was going to wear 1 pair for 5 days and then switch to another pair for the remaining 5 days and just switch back and forth as I needed. I really wish, and I'm sure many other people would agree, that I had brought an extra pair specifically to wear at camp. I wish I'd done that. But for some reason, and like most people, I nitpicked about weight. So I cut a lot of things I probably didn't need to, and we'll talk about that here coming up. Temperature management. Obviously, if you're dealing with synthetic layers, I think wisely you're managing your body temperature well, especially depending on what time of year you do this trail. You want to wear specific types of clothing. So like if you're doing a fall hike, you're dealing with colder temperatures. You want to make sure you're dressed accordingly and warm. If you're doing this in the spring season, obviously depending on when, you want to dress warm, but it's also a bit warmer out as is, so you don't want to overdress and hike. But I'm not going to tell you what to wear. So footwear. For my hiking footwear, I have one go-to, and it's the Ultra Lone Peak trail shoe. I won't pick another shoe as long as I live. I absolutely love those shoes and stand by those shoes. I think they're up to like a Lone Peak 9 now. The newest pair I have is a 7. It dries fast. It's durable. You can submerge them in water and keep hiking, and within 30 minutes, they're pretty dry. That's the main thing that sold me. The open toe box was another thing that sold me on these shoes. They got this open toe box where your feet can spread naturally in the shoe and don't feel cramped. I've never seen a shoe do that, and it's crazy comfortable. So I chose the Ultra Lone Peak. For my socks, I got the Injinji toe socks, and I think pairing the Injinji toe socks with the Ultras, there's just no other way to do footwear on a hiking trail. I had tested and researched footwear for hiking for the longest time and was constantly faced with hot spots and blisters. But the first time, and really the only time going forward, that I tried Ultra Lone Peaks with the Injinji toe socks, I never, ever got a blister again. Hot spots, yeah, because your feet get sore, but I've never dealt with blisters since switching to the Ultras and the toe socks. So if that doesn't sell you on the shoe, I encourage you to try it. Electronics. I brought 2 battery banks. I brought a 10,000 milliamp and a 20,000 milliamp. We'll go into my thoughts here in a minute if I brought too much. I also had brought my phone, which comes with a camera, obviously, and I brought my drone with me. What was my charging strategy like? Well, I wanted to bring 2 battery packs to make sure I didn't have to worry about juice so much on the trail. There are places along the trail to charge. Um, if I'm going to get into that specifically right now, you got High Knob, you can charge. There's places along the trail like Herod Springs Baptist Church has a shelter with outlets. You can charge there. There's places along the trail that you can strategically utilize an outlet to charge while you're hiking. So I never really ran into a problem with juice on this trail. With that being said, if I did this trail again, I would not bring 2 battery banks. I only ended up really using 1 battery bank. I never really used the other one. For the 10,000 milliamp battery pack, I think it's a My Charge, and the 20,000 milliamp that I brought, I think it's Anchor. I think if I do this again, I want to downgrade, not really downgrade, but kind of, I want to get the Nicor power bank that they got now that's like made of carbon fiber. It's like super light. Anyways, let's go into smaller gear items that I brought. My water filter. Everybody swears and attests to the Sawyer squeeze. First time I tried the Sawyer squeeze, I wasn't a fan of the flow rate, so I switched over to a Catadine B-Free. And while I'm not a big fan of the recent design changes that they've made with the filter, because, I mean, see, now you got to buy a new bag setup and everything, but the Catadine B-Free is amazing. The flow rate on it is crazy fast, and I've never really had any issues with the Catadine B-Free. So that was the water filter I chose. For my trekking poles, I had the Cascade Tech carbon fiber poles. I don't believe in spending a bloody fortune on gear, especially high-end top gear. Yeah, you want the best of the best, but you can still get the best of the best without breaking the bank. So for me, the trekking pole, Cascade Tech carbon fiber poles, very strong, durable poles. Let's talk about items that I would never bring again if I did this trail. 2 battery banks. I probably wouldn't bring 2 battery banks. You only need 1. I brought my Trekology inflatable pillow, and while that is a nice comfort item, I probably wouldn't bring that with me. I had researched about possibly bringing like a specific stuff sack that's made to convert to a pillow. I wish I'd done that, but yeah. I also brought Ultra Trail Gaiters, which I wore on my through hike. You don't really need trail gaiters. Your feet are going to get wet. They're going to get dirty. So I feel like trail gaiters are just a lost cause, on this trail. Let's talk about my favorite piece of gear on this hike outside of the drone, which it's the DJI Neo drone, and it's specifically, the way they made it is it's specifically made to kind of like follow you while you're using it, which makes beautiful shots, especially when you're hiking. So outside of bringing the drone, which is my new favorite piece on the trail, what were your longest, toughest days sections? We'll be getting into that here in just a moment. So bear with me, stay with me here, and we will definitely get into tough days on the trail. I want to get your name on the list here, sir. Data on trail. For those of you that are curious, I am doing a raffle giveaway. So as you join the chat and leave a comment, your name is going into a hat, which will get drawn at the end of this, and the prize will be a $50 gift card to an online backpacking retailer of your choice. Let's see. So outside of the drone, outside of my shoes and socks, which I will attest to as long as I live, outside of my sleeping bag and my sleeping pad, I did bring a small little portable hard drive that moved all my video stuff to while I was hiking to kind of free up space. It's a really small Samsung T7 external drive. It doesn't require a power supply. It's already built in. All you got to do is plug it in your phone and you can transfer stuff. I love that thing. It's super thin, super small, super lightweight, and I was able to capture a lot of video and save a lot of video um, because of that hard drive. I didn't really bring a lot of comfort items, so as far as favorite gear that I brought with me on this hike, that's that. Let's jump into food, meals, and resupply. Let's talk about my food strategy and what I packed out for my day one. So the way I planned it out, because I left water drops, which we'll also get into in a minute. I left water drops, so I spent a day in the Shawnee caching water along the trail. And so I told myself that I was going to carb load that day to kind of free up needing to haul out food for day one. So what did I do? I ordered a big pizza and I tried to eat as much of it as I could the day before. And that really kind of did me for day one. Didn't really eat or snack a whole lot on my first day, and that's because I had like monster pizza the day before. So let's talk about snacks that I did rely on days that I was hiking. A lot of it was just energy supplements, energy chews, gummy chews. For this trail specifically, I wanted to do a lot of food options where I didn't have to rely so much on cooking. So it's like meal supplement bars, Cliff bars. If I do this again, I'm definitely bringing comfort food. So like stove, Gushers. I should have brought Gushers. Let's see here. Owen, you're going on the list here. And lots of raw meat. Without jumping too far ahead, after realizing that my food loadout wasn't really working, I ended up just eating jerky most of the trail. So we'll talk about that in a minute here, though. So snacks that I did rely on initially was energy supplements, and then about halfway through the trail, when I realized what I brought for food wasn't working, I just stuck with what I knew would work, and that was jerky. With that being said, jumping into the topic of hot meals versus cold soaking, because I didn't do either of those. I went with a no-cook food option, and it was a bad idea. I think if I did this again, I would definitely bring a stove and enjoy the comforts of delicious food while I'm hiking, but I was all about cutting weight on this trail, and I felt like doing the no-cook option would have worked. Unfortunately, it did not work. So with that being said, we'll jump into food mistakes that I made. If you've ever heard of Green Belly meal-to-go bars, don't buy them. I'm telling you that right now. Save yourself. I don't know, maybe I just got a bad batch or something, but those were terrible. Terrible. Just the taste was terrible. They were super dense, and I don't know. I thought it would have been like a quick option to fill me up. And surely if I wasn't thinking about the taste so much, I probably wouldn't have mind. But when you're hiking all day and you're finally getting a moment to sit down and load up your energy, you do want to taste something while you eat. So those meal-to-go bars were a bad choice. What brand of food do you suggest? Well, if you're bringing a stove, bringing a freeze-dried meal that you know you're going to enjoy. And I think, without going on a tangent, that's what I'm coming down to in this discussion, is relying on what you know works versus trying to do something new to either save weight or try something new. Stick with what you know works. So if that's Mountain House Meals, Peak Refuel, Backpackers Pantry, there's a bunch of brands out there that are delicious. If you're doing cold soaking, I mean, I know there's a bunch of recipes out there for cold soaking. A lot of people do couscous or ramen or stuff like that. Quite honestly, I feel like the best way to go is with a stove. Go with what you know works. Let's see here. Thank you, Jamie, for that question. Kirk, a question from you, Kirk. Well, I think I answered your question, but we'll get you on here, Kirk. All right, resupply. Where did I resupply? I chose to really not bring a whole lot of food because I was relying on resupply points along the way, which there are a couple town stops where you can resupply. There's Eddyville, there's Goreville, there's Alto Pass. So my first resupply point was Shotgun Eddies, where I got some hot food. And in Eddyville, around my day 3, day 4, that's when I realized that my food loadout wasn't working. So I ended up hitting up a convenience / gas station that I think it opened up recently in Eddyville called Shawnee Mart. They had a ton of stuff in there. I felt like I was a kid in a candy shop when I went in there. So I stopped at Shawnee Mart, which is where I quickly discovered that jerky was my #1 go-to on this hike. There's also quite a few stops in Goreville. There's a Dollar General. There's a grocery market. Obviously, there's Giant City where they got the restaurant. Alto Pass, they have Duty's Country Store, which is like a little market / they got like a sandwich shop in there that's really good. What resupplies? What were resupplies like on the trail? Plentiful, I will say that. So when I first walked into that Shawnee Mart in Eddyville with the goal of revamping my food loadout, I almost bought the entire store. So without getting greedy, I resupplied what I felt like I needed for the next couple days until I got into Goreville. So it's like gas station food, jerky, chips. They do have some like protein nut options and stuff like that. I got into Goreville, hit up Dollar General. I got some, what did I end up getting from Dollar General? Jerky, I know that. I think I got some meal bars and stuff too. Really getting onto the topic of resupplying on the trail, there were pleasant surprises, but there wasn't any unexpected surprises with the resupply. Obviously, depending on what you're bringing on the trail versus what you're going to find, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Unexpected shortages that I found, obviously, we talked about that. The meal to go bars, I will never do that again. I think going forward, if you're hiking this trail or considering hiking this trail, go with what you know works. So as far as food goes, don't gamble or try something new. Go with what you know works. Go with what you've done before that you can attest to. In-town stops. We talked about that a little bit. There's Shotgun Eddies is one. I think if you're going to do this trail, there's a couple places you have to stop. Shotgun Eddies is a must. You have a few choices when you hit Goreville as far as what you have a taste for. They got a Subway, they got a Mexican restaurant, they've got a couple like mom and pop deli shops. Alto Pass. Giant City is a must. The Lodge restaurant. If you don't stay in Giant City, you have to at least visit the restaurant. Other in-town stops, like as far as you're looking for a place to hang your hat for the night, Eddyville has a few choices now. So they got Hayes Canyon Campground. They've got, I think it's, uh, forgive me if I'm misplacing the name here. I think it's Bear Creek is another one. There's recently been a new campground that opened up in the heart of Eddyville that's actually on the trail now. I'm trying to remember the name of it. If you go to the River to River Thru-Hiker page, it starts with an H, but it's literally right on the trail in the heart of Eddyville, just minutes from Shotgun Eddie's, minutes before jumping back into the trail, going westbound or eastbound. Gosh, I wish I could remember what the name of that campground was. I just heard about it the other day too. So if you're watching this, know that there's Hayes Canyon Campground, which is off the trail about 20 minutes. There's Bear Creek Campground, which is about a mile or two down the road. And then there's a new campground that opened up in the heart of Eddyville on the River to River. Any bars, diners, pizza spots? Obviously, outside of Shotgun Eddie's, Giant City is another good stop. Yeah, let's jump forward into this here. Got some new questions. One, for a couple of years, I have been studying the River to River Trail for when I retire to escape. Did you have any problems with dogs or people along the trail? I noticed you meet with Sean, and I too would like to pick his brain on the trail. Congratulations on your completion. Cheers. Thank you, Bernie. Your name's going in the drawing, sir. Bernie. As far as dogs and people, everybody, for the most part, is pleasant down there. A lot of nice people in Southern Illinois. As far as dogs go, this year I didn't really run into any loose dogs. I know there was a year I did the trail where there was a few times I've had some sketchy looking dogs run up to me. But I think if you pay them no mind, you don't bother them, they don't bother you. I never had interaction with a dog that I felt was sketchy. Like I said, this last year, I didn't run into any loose dogs. There were some scary dogs, but I didn't, they were leashed up. As far as people down there, everybody down there for the most part is friendly. Sean is a wealth of knowledge. I'm just very grateful I had the opportunity to get a shuttle ride from Sean, because that gave me an hour to really talk with him about hiking in the Shawnee National Forest. And he's been doing his YouTube channel and guide work down there for a very long time, so he's a huge wealth of information. So you can pick his brain if you choose to find him on Facebook. He's not hard to find, and he's a very friendly guy that will answer all your questions. Obviously, outside of the information that's provided on the River to River Trail.net website with the trail guide and the Thru-Hiker Facebook group. Okay, jumping back into it now. Daily hiking life, mileage. What were my typical miles per day? It varied. I had two really big days. I think one of them was 25 miles. Another one was 27 miles. And then I had short days. I think one was I had one day where it was 11 miles. I had another day that was 14 miles. So I think if you're going to give yourself 10 days to do this trail, you can do about 16 a day and be safe. I jumped into this hike with the mindset of not just trying to complete it, but I wanted to enjoy it. So I had picked out where I wanted to stay in advance. And so that meant certain mileages each day. I took it easy some days. My two high mileage dates, one, the 25 mile, I had planned on camping at Dutchman, but with recent trail damage and overgrowth and maintenance, I couldn't find the campsite I was looking for. So I just ended up saying, okay, whatever, I'm gonna push forward to Goreville. That was a long day. So I think as far as mileage goes, it's whatever you're comfortable with. So going back into that, my hardest day versus my easiest day, I think my hardest day was probably day 5, which was my 25-mile day from Trigg Tower to Goreville. Once I got through the Dutchman Lake area and I got back onto Tall Tree Lake Road, that whole walk from there to getting into Ferncliff was rough. But I'd do it again. I would do it again. Easiest day was probably day 7. And I think that's when I hiked from Giant City to Cedar Lake. I had planned on camping at Cedar Lake. It's been a spot that I've dreamt of camping at for the longest time. So I decided to stay at Cedar Lake. So that was a planned short day. And that was nice. Especially when I was cutting through some small parts over by McCann that were kind of tough to get through. So that made having a small day pleasant. Let's talk about routines. What was my morning routine like? Well, outside of waking up and tearing everything down as quickly as I could, packing it all up so I could hit the trail, my morning routine, I tried to pace myself so I didn't, pack up too quick and end up leaving something behind. I wanted to make sure that as I was packing, I was accounting for everything and wrapping my head around what I was doing that day. Let's see here. What is Sean's YouTube channel? He's got a couple. He's got Hiking with Sean. He's got, I think it's Sean Bikes. So he's got a couple channels. But definitely, if you look up Hiking with Sean, you won't have trouble finding it. So morning routines were pretty simple, getting packed up, getting on trail. Once I got to where I decided I was going to set up camp, my routine was very simple. It was figuring out where I was laying my tent, clearing the area, laying my tent. After my tent was set up, then I would start worrying about food intake. I would start worrying about water. And then usually by the evening, after camp was set up, after I had my food, I had my water, it was really just sleep. It was moving all my video to the hard drive and then sleep. Let's talk about trail pace and mood. When did the trail feel the hardest? I think I covered that. It was day 5, I think it was my toughest day. And moments where I felt strongest was probably my last day. Without jumping too far ahead, because I think my day 7 video releases tonight, I ran into somebody that I met on my second day, and long story short, we got the crazy idea of completing the trail in one day. And I'd seen other people that have vlogged this Thru-Hike on YouTube before accomplish this feat. From Cedar Lake to Grand Tower. And I think that's the one day I felt my strongest, just because I wasn't exactly sure how I would do on that stretch, but without giving too much away. Did I have any I want to quit moments? Yes. On my day 6, which was from Ferncliff to Giant City, mind you, I skipped the Fern Cliff section, and I skipped the road walk coming out of Fern Cliff to Wayside Lane without getting off topic too much. I made that decision because a good friend of mine had contacted me the morning I woke up in Fern Cliff and said, "Hey, I got you a cabin." "Oh, that's awesome. You got me a cabin. That's great." "Yeah, it's tonight." "Oh, bro, I'm still 27 miles away." So I made the choice because otherwise I would have missed out on a cabin stay because they were overbooked that weekend. So there was no moving the date. It was either I made it that night or I didn't stay at Giant City at all. I wanted to stay at Giant City. It's been something that I've wanted to do on this thru-hike experience since starting the journey of this thru-hike experience years ago. Was a Giant City stay. So I made the choice of cutting out Fern Cliff just because I feel like it's kind of like a mundane section. It's kind of drawn out. And then obviously that road walk coming out of Fern Cliff to Wayside Lane. I mean, let's be real. There's a lot of road walking on this trail, and depending on where your head is at, it can be a bit much. So I made the decision to cut out Fern Cliff and that road walk, and I'm okay with that decision that I made. So that cut off about 20 miles of the trail, but that's okay because I still had quite the experience in Giant City. But why was that an I want to quit moment? Well, there were a few tough areas going into Panther Den and Crab Orchard that at one point I didn't think I was going to get through, and it was overgrowth and storm damage. And I think if we're going to be completely honest here, there was a point in time when I made the decision to cut out Fern Cliff and the road walk that I might have psyched myself up a bit and told myself, well, you're cheating yourself out of the thru-hike experience by not doing Fern Cliff or the road walk. But honestly, it's putting that thought process behind me because I was out there to enjoy my hike. Whether it was covering all the miles or not, I wanted to enjoy that hike. And so with it being day 6, a Giant City stay is what I needed to enjoy that hike. So that was my thought process behind that. If anybody has any questions about that, please drop it in the chat. Did you pack a knife, hatchet, or a pack saw? I did not, Merv. I was all about cutting weight on this hike, so I didn't pack out a lot of things like a knife or a hatchet. As far as a defense tool, I had my trekking poles. I wasn't, hiking out there, I'm not really too worried about coming into conflict with people, so, as I never have. Let's talk about trail experiences. Jumping off with terrain and weather. Rocky sections on the trail. I think that's one of the most beautiful parts about hiking this trail in the fall season is it's dry. And the time that I had chose to do this hike was perfect because there was still water, but it was dry enough that like those sections that would have been muddy and terrible were for the most part dry. So like Gum Springs, One Horse Gap. I'm trying to think of other areas of the trail that are pretty rocky. Closer towards the halfway point over by Tin Whistle. I know hiking up to Tin Whistle can be a pain if it's wet out. A lot of rocks, but yeah. The terrain overall was beautiful. The weather overall was beautiful. I didn't run into too much rain out there. In fact, I didn't run into any rain out there, actually. I had one cold morning, but other than that, there was no mud. Didn't have to deal with any mud. So if you want to experience this trail without the mud, hike it in the fall. Let's see here. If you hike it in the spring, expect mud. Expect, depending on when you go, heat and humidity. Anyways, moving on. Best views and favorite places. Well, Inspiration Point is definitely a highlight on the trail. I think some other areas on the trail I visited that were, I would say, considered good view areas. I hit the Trail 170 overlook going into One Horse Gap. That was beautiful. Obviously, the giant overlook in Garden of the Gods is beautiful. Um, there's a part, there's a small stretch of road walk getting into the Bald Knob area where you can kind of oversee the landscape and you can see Bald Knob Cross and stuff. Like, that's gorgeous. Panther Den, that's a good view. This year was the first year that I was able to find the hippie bus over there by Millstone Lake. It's a bit of a climb once you cross the levee, but I was able to check out the hippie bus. I'm glad I did. That's been on my list since discovering this trail. Some unexpected beautiful moments off the top of my head. Inspiration Point's a good one, but unexpected. Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head. Let's see here. Challenges. Let's discuss navigation issues. The only navigation issues I ran into while doing this trail were the parts of the trail that saw a lot of damage. They had a rainstorm come through the area the day before I started my through hike. So there were some parts of the trail that had down trees. It was those same areas that just so happened to have some overgrowth too, which made it all that much more interesting. Obviously, because of the storm, there were missing blazes or lack of blazes. That made traveling and navigating the trail difficult. But again, having a Venza is a useful tool. Checking it frequently helps. The long-awaited topic of my water drops and my water caches. One thing I will say about hiking this trail in the fall is you do run into the possibility of there being either a scarcity of water or a concern about the abundance of water on the trail. I didn't want to worry about that at all. So there is a website you can check through the Forest Service that has a graph that illustrates the water levels in certain areas like Lusk Creek. You can use that to kind of base off what the water looks like in certain areas before you start your hike. I didn't want to take a gamble, so I just told myself I'm going to leave water drops. Whether or not I use them or need them, they're there. So that made me comfortable. Actually starting the hike, while certain areas the water was a bit shallow, having the water drops was nice. I didn't need them. We'll say that. I didn't need the water drops, but because they were there, they were nice. That's the only reason I left water drops. I had somebody ask me at one point, why'd you leave water drops? Why didn't you just filter water? Well, I did both. I filtered water and I had the water drops. I chose the water drops because I didn't want to worry about running into a scarcity or abundance of water. That's the only reason I did the water drops. Moving forward. Overgrown and poorly marked sections. The only two parts I felt like were crazy overgrown to the point where I got really frustrated on trail was over by Dutchman Lake and in Crab Orchard. I want to say the western part of Crab Orchard. And maybe some of Panther Den too. It's okay. I feel like that's part of the through hike experience, is just getting stuck in the bush occasionally. Let's talk about animals. I know a lot of people are concerned or worry about snakes on this trail. In the fall season, or towards the end of October when I did my through hike, I ran into a lot of deer, a lot of deer. I only saw one snake, and it was a tiny little snake. And here's the funny part, it was in a turtle's mouth. A turtle was eating a snake. That's all I saw while I was out there. A lot of deer and a turtle that was snacking on a snake. Other than that, I didn't see any rattlers. In fact, in the 4 years I've hiked this trail, I've never seen any rattlesnakes. I don't know. Let's talk about campsites, planned campsites versus unplanned campsites. Jumping into this, I had created a basic itinerary, but it's important going into any kind of through hike adventure that you don't rely too much on plans because they fall through. But I at least wanted to have a basic itinerary so I could tell myself, I'll camp here. I'll camp here. I'll camp here. For the most part, I camped at every location I planned to stay at. And with that being said, there was no unplanned stops on this hike. But if you're doing this through hike and you overestimate a mileage on one day and you decide you need to stealth camp or something, just be smart about it. Or if you're in a wilderness area where you can set up camp, utilize the trail guide. There are established sites on the trail. Worst campsites that I experienced and why. The absolute worst campsite, I don't want to say it because I don't want to deter anybody. When I stayed at Hayes Canyon Campground, it was $15 for a campsite at Hayes Canyon, and they had me set up behind the shower house, but it was all grass, and it was along a small creek. So in the morning, I had a very wet tent, and I blame that solely on the fact that when I set up in grass, I have the worst condensation problems. So waking up in Hayes Canyon, I had a bit of a shower in the tent waking up, but I don't want that to deter anybody from staying at Hayes Canyon because she's a very nice lady that runs that place. It's $15 for a tent site, but that gives you access to the shower house, and they also have laundry facilities on the premises. And not to mention, it's just a 20-minute walk from Eddyville, from Shotgun Eddy's. I guess let me change that. Another worst camp scenario here where it was almost safety considerations were considered. Safety was considered. Trig Tower. I didn't really talk about this too much in my video, but when I stayed at Trig Tower, so on the trail guide, it's designated that in the woods a bit, there's a campsite, which there is an established site next to Trig Tower, but it's also, if you've been to Trig Tower, there's a little parking lot there. And this is the only time I've had to experience this. But so I get to Trig Tower, I set up my tent probably about 40 feet in the woods from that little parking area. But after sun came down, I assumed they were local kids or something, going somewhere to hang out, but they had came in and they had parked facing my tent with their headlights on, just shining their lights in my tent. I'm in there trying to sleep. I really wasn't bothered by it too much until I had realized that they had been there for some time with the lights on in my tent. But when they finally decided to pull out of there, they made it a statement to peel out and honk their horns uncontrollably, and then came back I think it was 20 minutes later and parked there again, shining their brights in my tent. It almost got to the point where I felt like I had to step out of my tent and ask them hey, what's the problem? Obviously I didn't. That was probably the only night on trail where I was just kind of hey, what's going on? So if you stay at Trig Tower, just because it's a well-populated area and it's frequented a lot, the tent site that they have there is kind of in the woods next to the parking area. Just be mindful, especially if you're hiking alone. Yeah, I don't want to give anybody the wrong impression. It's a very safe area. I didn't have any issues with any locals. Specific overnight spots that stood out to me. The Trail 170 overlook going into One Horse Gap. Where do you live? It's an interesting question. I live in the Chicagoland area, about, I want to say 20 minutes west of the city. I've heard of a few problems of folks were losing track of the trail around Petticoat Junction. Did you find the trail better blazed there? I didn't have any issues navigating the trail around Petticoat Junction. I feel like there were enough blazes, and outside the fact that I was constantly checking the map at intersections anyways, I really didn't have a problem staying on trail around that area. I think the only areas I had a problem on trail with navigation was in Giant City, and just I felt like there was a section on the east end of Giant City where the trail's not marked at all. In fact, there was one point I felt like I was just kind of strolling through the woods, but I was actually on trail somehow. So definitely check the map often when you're out there. Let's see here. Sorry, I was subscribed to you previously, but know nothing about you. Okay. Well, I'm a backpacker and through hiker, and in this video, we're talking about my recent through hike of the river to river. All I can say to that is, I guess I encourage you, if you're curious, if you're interested, check out my channel and the content that I have. I want to say, obviously, you subscribed for a reason. And today, good sir, is a good day for you, Mr. Chaos, because I'm putting you in for my drawing that I'm going to have here shortly for a $50 gift card to any online retailer of your choice. The reason I ask is because I'm also in Illinois and have been eyeing up family. Sorry, not trying to be weird, but now I gotta watch your vids. Well, sir, I hope you enjoy, Mr. Chaos. I am now going to check out your channel when we're done here, because you have me curious as well. But I'm glad to have met you, and it's good to know we have some similarities in the fact that we both live in Illinois. How about that? Moving on here. Where were we? I think we're talking about overnight spots I enjoyed. One Horse Gap was a good stay. Hayes Canyon was a good stay. I don't want to deter anybody from my experience in the grass. Other memorable stays. Here we go. High Knob. Many of you know, many of you don't know, but the woman that runs High Knob recently retired. And every time I've done this trail, I've ran into a trail magic experience with JoJo. She's very kind to people that hike the river to river. And my first night on the trail, there was a crazy storm, and I had planned originally on my first day to set up camp near the trail intersection, the Battery Rock intersection there. I think it's about like 14 or 15 miles in at the beginning. But when I had got there, there was still a good amount of daylight, and I wanted to avoid that storm, so I pushed into High Knob. And when I got to High Knob, the goal was to try to get myself set up in a cabin so I could avoid the whatever potential weather risks were on their way. It was like 6:30 when I rolled in there, and I walked up to the camp store, and the sign said they closed at 7, but their sliding door was open and the lights were on inside. So I stayed outside and waited for somebody. Nobody came, so I then tried to call the number on the door. I couldn't get through on my phone. Long story short, I got my first real touch of trail magic when I got in touch with Sean and asked if he could help me get a hold of JoJo, who doesn't run anymore, but who at the time was running High Knob. And she came out and she hooked me up. She got me into what they called their High Knob Hilton, which was this huge trailer with like a furnished kitchen, and I think they had like 5 bedrooms in that thing, with like a shower room for women, a shower room for men, and the best part about it, she gave me a cold beer like on my very first night. Like, what are the odds? So that was definitely a very memorable stay there. JoJo is a huge blessing on the trail, and I hope future through hikers still get to experience her magic and her kindness that she shares. Giant City was definitely a memorable stay for many reasons, outside the fact that once you get to Giant City, you're so invested in the through hike experience that when you finally realize, oh my gosh, I get a hot shower, a warm bed, and a delicious hot meal, that Giant City is just there's no question, it's a must. And Cedar Lake was also a memorable stay. I've always wanted to camp at Cedar Lake on the spillway, and it was a very memorable stay, to say the least. Interactions with people on the trail. We'll talk about trail angels real quick. JoJo, as I had mentioned, is always helping out hikers on the trail and lending help. So if you get a chance to meet JoJo at High Knob, or have met JoJo at High Knob, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I got 2 friends of mine, 2 good friends, that helped me out and shared some trail magic with me. Joe, Chris, I can't say it enough, but thank you so much. Chris, you had not only helped me get a hold of somebody at Hayes Canyon when I got into Eddyville, but you also hooked me up with a ride from Goreville to where the trail got back in on Wayside Lane. Thank you so much. Joe, I don't even know what to say, Joe. I did not expect you to get me a cabin, and you did. I felt like on this hike I wasn't going to have the experience of staying in Giant City, and you made it all possible. And on top of which, you didn't just get me into one of their historic cabins. You like got me into like this huge cabin with multiple rooms, and the whole experience staying at Giant City was just amazing. I met some really cool people there. And Joe, I know we had planned on you coming out and sharing in the experience of that through hike with me, and things happen, but there's still hiking to be done, sir. So Sean Gossman of Hiking with Sean is another trail angel I got to meet. He had given me a ride from Grand Tower to Elizabethtown. I really didn't expect him to go out of his way to give me a ride. And the fact that he did was amazing, because as most of Hiking with Sean, he's kind of a celebrity down in Southern Illinois, so it was like a humbling experience to be able to get to meet him and pick his brain. And on top of that, he wanted me to stay in contact with him during my hike, let him know where I was, and that was nice. So I'm very glad I got the chance to meet Sean. If you don't know about Sean Gossman, I encourage you, head on over to YouTube, search Hiking with Sean, or visit hikingwithsean.com. He's just a huge asset to the hiking community and biking community, trail running community in the Shawnee National Forest. Let's talk about locals in the Shawnee National Forest. Random conversations. I only ran into a couple moments on the trail where I had the pleasure of meeting some kind locals. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Everybody down there is kind. When hiking down the trail and I see a car coming my way, I always took 2 seconds to just stop and wave. Everybody waved back. There were a couple towns I had passed through where I had the chance to engage with some local people there, and just everybody's just so kind down there. Like in Makanda, Eddyville, Goreville, Giant City, even in Grand Tower, like everybody's just so nice. I think there was one day I was taking a break at my water drop location over by Concord Cemetery, before the road walk up to Lusk Creek, and there's a farm right there. If you know what I'm talking about, when you come off trail onto the road, there's a farm right there. The people that actually owned the farm had drove up and saw me sitting on the trail, and I think they were concerned, like, hey, are you okay? Do you need help? And I was just kind of like, no, I'm good. I'm just taking a water break. And they're like, oh, okay, well, enjoy your hike. I just thought that was really cool. I think it's always cool, especially when you hike this trail, the amount of people that just kind of roll up to you and they want to know, especially horseback riders, hiking the trail and, oh, hey, how many miles have you done? Oh, are you going all the way? Just a lot of kind people down there. So, let's see here. I also had the chance when I was getting into Lusk Creek to meet a patrol captain with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I thought she was just a forest ranger. When she walked up to me, she asked me if I was out there hunting. Obviously, I'm not hunting, and she said that she was out there with her partner investigating illegal ATV activity. And I think at the time I was carrying 2 empty plastic jugs on my pack, and she's like, hey, I'll take your plastic jugs from you if you want me to. And I was like, oh yeah, please, absolutely. And in exchange, she gave me her business card. She said, hey, well, if you run into any illegal ATV activity, just give me a buzz, let me know. And I'm walking away and I look at the card and it says patrol captain, and I'm like, that's kind of cool, So that was another nice lady I met. And then getting into Lusk Creek, I met another local who I guess ran the church at the top of the hill there. I don't know if it's Bethesda or another church there or campground, but she was kind enough to say, hey, just, forewarn you, it's bow hunting season. You might want to throw some orange on your pack. And she wasn't the first person to ask me or to suggest putting orange on my pack. So just a lot of kind people out there looking out for one another. That's one thing I always enjoy about backpacking in Southern Illinois, is the culture down there. Moving on, let's talk about weird encounters on the trail. I only had one super strange encounter on the trail, outside of obviously my experience at Trig Tower. Hang on here, let me check in on the chat. Okay, moving on here. One super weird encounter. I think it was my last day, and I was coming out of the Cedar Lake area before the long stretch road going into Alto Pass, but it was pitch black. It was still dark out, early morning hours, and I'm coming around this corner on this hill, and I see this super bright light at the top of the hill shining down, and I think I assumed it was a porch light or a street light or something, but I paid no mind to it, right? And we're walking, and all of a sudden the light starts to move down the hill, and all I see right now is this shining bright light. And when I first noticed it was still, and then all of a sudden it starts to slowly move down the hill, and you see this and you're just kind of like, what is that? So I'm stationed there watching this light come down the hill, trying to, like, as it gets closer, try to see what it is, because it's dark. And it gets close enough to where we can make out, I keep saying I don't want to give the last video away, but it gets close enough to where I can make out a male's voice but I'm still trying to, I can't see. All I see is this shining light, but it gets close enough, and all I hear is this deep, raspy voice. And he says, "Don't be scared. I'm just looking for my blind." So I hear that, and right away I'm just like, okay, it's a hunter, but it's kind of like super sketch, you know. It's dark out, and he's kind of coming up on me. I can't see him. Don't be scared. Just looking for my blind. He ended up following us a good distance on the trail before we kind of just decided to put off for a minute and let him pass us. But that was just a super, super odd encounter, and he reeked of cigarettes, which I don't understand how you can go deer hunting and smoke and not worry about the deers picking up that scent. But super, super odd encounter. Um, don't be scared. Just looking for my blind. Moving on. How many hikers did I see on my through hike? I only met and ran into one solo through hiker. His name was Evan. First met him on my second day. I guess when I was staying at High Knob in the cabin, he was actually camped at the top of High Knob and camped through the storm. Evan, you're a savage for camping through that. But I met him on my second day, and I think I was taking a break over Buzzard's Roost, and he continued on. And unknowingly, I didn't run into him again, but unknowingly, when I came into Fern Cliff, he was actually camped at the campsite directly across from me at Fern Cliff. I had no idea. And then, obviously, without giving away too much, spent my last day with Evan, and good dude. Hopefully, I get the opportunity to hit another trail with this gentleman, but a good dude. Only other hiker I met while I was out there, as far as other groups, I met a lot of horseback riders. I engaged with one group of horseback riders that actually stopped and had a conversation with me. Otherwise, they were just kind of like, common trail etiquette. You see a group of horseback riders, you stop, you step off trail, sit down, let them pass. But there was only one group that actually stopped and engaged in conversation with me because they were curious, oh, you're through hiking the trail, you're doing the whole thing. But yeah, let's talk about lessons learned on this trail and personal takeaways. So what did the trail teach me? I had been hiking this trail for many, many years. I think I first section hiked this trail back in 2021. I think I took like 5 or 6 days and did different sections of the trail just to get better acquainted with the trail and the hiking experience, to get myself started and psych myself up. I returned the next year to try my solo attempt, and it was a failed attempt. I came back the next year after that and completed a west to east through hike with my good friend Joe. And then here we are, 2025, attempting my solo through hike again, going eastbound. So what has the trail taught me? Well, a big thing I learned about myself is patience. While I won't confidently say I completed a through hike this year, I did complete a through hike in my own conscience, in my own state of mind. I completed the trail. I came out to do what I wanted to do. So I learned a lot about patience within myself and my own strengths, perseverance, and really the power of kindness from other people, is a lot that the trail has taught me. I think this trail is through hiking this trail can be a very humbling experience, and can definitely change your perspective on a lot of things if you allow it to, if you open yourself up to learning from day to day challenges and what the trail throws at you. We all take on through hike adventures for our own reasons. I feel like mine on this one, a lot of it was, I don't want to get too much into it. A lot of my own reasons for through hiking a trail or experiencing that kind of endeavor is just kind of personal healing and personal growth. But yeah, anyways, moving forward, let's talk about backpacking tips and what I can recommend for beginners that are considering through hiking this trail. This is the topic that everyone's, I'm sure, been waiting for an hour and 30 minutes now. The best advice I can give somebody that's interested in through hiking this trail is research as much as you possibly can before you jump into it. Google has been the ultimate research tool, YouTube, and without a doubt, I can't stress it enough, river-to-river-trail.net. There is a website dedicated to this trail. There's an organization dedicated to sharing information about this trail. River-to-river-trail.net. They've got a trail guide. The information on it, it might be on the tad outdated side, but for the most part, the information in the trail guide is complete and accurate. The maps that they provide on the trail guide are updated frequently. There's also a Facebook group page. If you look up River to River Trail through hikers, even people that through hike the trail utilize this group page to share information, ask questions, and that's an awesome resource right there. So the best thing I can say to somebody that's a beginner on this trail is do your research. Ask as many questions as you can. Look up as much information as possible. Leave no stone unturned. Know everything you need to know going into it before you go into it. The gear, the mileage you're going to accomplish on a daily basis, food, resupply, water, just learn about it all before you jump into it. And with that being said, I will say another piece of advice I can give somebody is don't overthink or overplan, because your plans are going to turn around at some point while you're through and hiking this trail. Nothing ever really goes to plan, but it's nice to have a plan or an itinerary to go off of, but don't stick to it because it's never going to work out. I'm going to say it again to stress it as much as I can. river-to-river-trail.net, and on Facebook, River to River Trail Through Hikers. Huge, huge informational tools for people that are interested in through hiking this trail. Mistakes to avoid on this trail. I think it all depends on when you want to hike this trail. In the fall season or the spring season. In the fall season, you got to worry about, the possibility of water scarcity and cold temperatures. In the spring season, you got to worry about an abundance of water to the point where some creeks might be impassable, or you might have to find alternate routes because there's a lot of water. It really all depends on when you want to hike this trail. But as far as mistakes to avoid, I feel like when it comes to through hiking a trail, the best way anybody can learn about themselves backpacking is we're all human. We make mistakes, and that's how we perfect ourselves on a day-to-day basis. Without preaching too much and making this like such a huge thing, the biggest advice I can give you to avoid is choose your food wisely. Go with what you know works. Don't try to invest too much energy into stuff that you hope will work or think will work, or you want to test that it will work. Go into this hike with what you know will work for you, and it will work for you. Don't be so nervous for unexpected situations. things happen, and sometimes we all just need to face the fire. So, I mean, like if I do this trail again, and if I find myself on a day where weather might get kind of sketch, before I jump to the conclusion of trying to find an indoor shelter, I might just try to tough it out and see if, what happens, face the fire. I mean, Evan, the gentleman I hiked with, he set up his tent at the top of a hill during a crazy rainstorm, and he was okay. So I think it all just depends on your own personal comfort. And moving on, let's keep it going. Does anybody have any other questions? I've kind of had this thing going now for an hour and 36 minutes. I feel like I've answered a good amount of questions, but if anybody has any other questions about gear weight or my hardest moment or food or sections of the trail, I'll answer any questions that anybody has before we kind of wrap up this video and do the drawing. The big thing that everyone's been here waiting for is the drawing. Let's see here. See if we got any questions I might have missed. Let's see here. I'm glad everybody turned out and had a chance to hear me out. I don't see any new questions. Well, I'll talk a little bit about my future plans on this channel. Hopefully that'll give people an opportunity to drop one if they got one. Upcoming videos for my channel. I do still have 2 videos in my Thru-Hike series. One that will, I think, post tonight, and the last one that will post tomorrow is my day 7 and my day 8 of my 2025 River to River Trail Thru-Hike. So if you've been waiting on those, tonight at 9 o'clock will be day 7, and then tomorrow, I believe at 9 o'clock, will be my day 8 and my final video on the video series. Some future videos and future hikes that I'm planning. I am planning on another Shawnee visit next year in the spring 2026. A good friend of mine would like to experience the Shawnee National Forest, so I think I'll be doing a backpacking video. We're just going to hit some hot spots in the Shawnee, and so it'll be good to get back out there in the spring next year. There are a bunch of trails that I'd love to check out still in Indiana and Michigan. So hopefully those are some videos that to keep an eye out for. Some additional hikes in Indiana and Michigan as well, possibly. Some other ventures that I'm looking into. I played around with the idea of like creating sort of like an expedition company. Mind you, the key word is playing around with the idea. Not really vested into it too much, but because I know there's another company in the Midwest called True North Expeditions, and they host a lot of backpacking trips. But I was playing around with the idea of creating like a river to river adventure company that like would host either section hikes of the trail or through hikes of the trail, or would just be ultimately a resource that hikers could use, whether it be shuttling or resupply along the trail, or just having a point man while they do their through hike, some sort of reliance. I thought about maybe starting a company that does that, but I feel like the thing that works against that is, while there is a lot of people that through hike this trail, I don't think there's like it's not a well popular trail that gets through hiked often enough that a venture of creating a company would be beneficial. But I would love to start a through hike company or an expedition company, something like True North for the river to river. Um, yeah, I don't know. Mine's constantly spinning. I also was thinking about doing some sort of high mileage, like 24-hour challenge, um, to kind of benefit like men's mental health. Or I think next month is, I think it's called Seasonal Affected Disorder Awareness Month. People that have a tough time with their mental health in the winter because it's cold and they're trapped indoors. Doing something that kind of sheds light on that. Uh, just kind of doing like a high mileage day, seeing how far I could get from one point to one point in a day. And I was looking at possibly doing something along the Illinois Prairie Path and the Fox River Trail out here in the suburbs. I don't know. These are just ideas and stuff at the top of my head that I can remember, that I was looking into. Yeah. I do want to encourage anybody, if nobody has a question now, just feel free to comment your question in the video, and I guarantee you I will answer it as quickly as I can. So, give yourself a moment or two if you want to go back and watch this video again. If there's any information I missed or went over that you are more curious about, leave a question in the comments. And yeah, rewatch the live stream later if you missed anything, or if I missed anything, let me know. Thank you to everybody that had a chance to check out this live stream. I hope I was able to cover as much information about my recent through hike of the trail as I can or did. If there's any other topics that I didn't go over in the live stream, leave a comment, let me know. Let's see here. But yeah, I don't know. Let's get down to the important stuff here. I got a hat with names. If you were on the live stream and didn't comment on the chat, unfortunately, that does not get you in the drawing. I tried to specifically notate at the beginning of the video and in the description of the video that to enter yourself in this drawing, thank you, Merv, appreciate you. To enter yourself in this drawing, you had to not only just watch the stream, but comment in the chat. So I have a hat with names here that I'm going to draw for a $50 gift card to an online backpacking retailer of your choice. And we're doing this drawing old school, okay? I'm not looking, we're closing the eyes, and we're going to shuffle the names around here a little bit, and we're going to draw a name. Okay. Trying to make this as random as I can. All right. Drum roll, please. That's my wife, everybody. We're going to try it again. Jamie, you still win. We're going to do another name here. Oh. All right, let's see here. One more time. Well. For a man that doesn't know anything about my channel, and I hope that this video has inspired you to check out other content on my channel, you, sir, have won yourself a $50 gift card to an online backpacking retailer of your choice. So I'm assuming that if you are subscribed to me and you don't know anything about my channel, that, I don't know, maybe you backpack and hike, maybe you don't. But I am offering a $50 gift card to an online backpacking retailer of your choice. So that's anything from, REI, Sierra, Garage Grown Gear, Teton Sports, Hyperlite. I'm not sure what you can get for $50 at Hyperlite, but yeah, $50 to an online backpacking retailer of your choice. So I hope you hike. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself with $50 to a place that you probably don't need anything. But anyways, moving on. Take a moment, think about what you would like your $50 to go towards, and then please, uh, if you can, message me on YouTube, or you can email me at glenhikes@gmail.com, and I'll write that down here so that you can send me your contact information so I can get you $50 gift card to an online retailer of your choice. Mr. Chaos, here is my email. It's appearing backwards on my camera. Hopefully it's not appearing backwards for you, but glenhikes@gmail.com. Send me your contact information and I will get you a $50 gift card, sir. I think it's very ironic that your name is the one that I drew. Thank you, everybody, for taking the moment out of your days to check out my live stream. I hope this was fun for you to watch, and I look forward to doing more live streams in the future. Leave a comment. Like I said, if you have a question that wasn't answered or a question that pops up later. But other than that, y'all have a great day. Thank you for turning out and showing up and conversating with me and listening to me. Blah, 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 blah. And yeah, take care, y'all. I'll catch you on the next one. See if I can remember how to turn this off. Let's see here. Good day, y'all.